Does Auburn have the best home field advantage in the SEC?
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off. And you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
Yes, sir. We're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie Five, and we are ready to get after it. Happy Tuesday. Does Auburn ever had the best home field advantage in the SEC? We're going to talk about that and then all the aspects that go into what creates a great home field advantage. And then we're going to look at Auburn's schedule with this thought in mind. Could there be something special brewing about the sixth game of the season? I think there could be something special brewing. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But before we do that, let's give a quick shout out to Rhoback.com. Use coupon code BUTTON20 to take 20% off your order, whether it's a polo, a hoodie, a swimsuit, a hat. It doesn't matter. Rhoback's got it. You can go as zany as you want, from prints to crazy colors, or you can go more traditional. If you like stripes, solids, doesn't matter. They've got something for everybody. So show them some love. It's Rhoback.com. I'm going to play a clip here from the next round, and I think it's a fun discussion about Auburn and Jordan-Hare Stadium and the home field advantage that may or may not be there. Over the last several years, at no fault to anyone in the stands, I can understand how some people would say that's kind of silly to think that Auburn has the best home field advantage in the SEC. But I like the way Ryan Brown describes it, and I'm going to play it, and then we're going to discuss.
The Jordan-Hare thing is overrated.
How do you define what's home field advantage?
So I would define it as at least a team plays at a higher level than they normally would, and I believe it is because of the atmosphere in which they play.
Is this historically or now?
I would say, historically to a certain extent. I wouldn't go back to the 1960s, but I will consider, the last 20 or 25 years.
Yeah, I just don't think you can put Auburn up there.
Oh, 100% you can. I have been to many.
They've lost to New Mexico State, Cal, and Vanderbilt at home in the last 2 years.
So that's 2 years, but you didn't hear me. I said I'm considering historically, 25 years.
Okay.
No, I mean, anybody can look at records and just say, well, here are the best team records. I mean, that's easy to do. And people that don't watch college football could do that. But I have been to many Iron Bowls and Deep South oldest rivalries where Alabama and Georgia are obviously the better teams, obviously. And they've either lost the game, in Alabama's case, or in Alabama and Georgia's case, had to fight tooth and nail to get out of Jordan-Hare Stadium against a lesser opponent. And having been at the games, it's 100% because they don't manage the crowd well. 100%.
I want to take what Lance said first because I think it's going to be the common response. And I totally get it. He'd mentioned just the last 2 years. I mean, you could go back even further, the last 4 years really, where Auburn's just dropped some really unexplicable games or really been embarrassed at home. And then it's like, well, how is this possible that they could be on the list when things like this happen, when the Vanderbilt loss or a New Mexico State loss? Or I'll throw one out there that's one of the most disgusting home games that I can remember, and that's Penn State, Harson's last year. Recent history would fly well in the face of this claim if it was just about wins and losses. And I totally get it. The luster for Auburn football and the everybody getting fired up for Auburn football has been sort of in a big time lull. And I think that really does affect the crowd a lot. And again, don't take this as me blaming the crowd, because it's been a poor product that we've been asked to come show up and support for the past, you can go beyond 4 years. So I get it. I get it that it's a ton of money. It's a ton of effort. It's hot. It's uncomfortable a lot of times. And then when you're going and you don't feel like you have a really good shot to win, it makes it hard to get up for those games. I totally get it. But even in the darkness, even in times where Auburn has no shot, and I can't really put my finger on why, but sometimes for whatever reason, that crowd shows up and it makes Jordan-Hare Stadium a nightmare for opposing teams. Now, back in the 2000s and whatnot, when Auburn was kind of in a really good spot, it was every game. I can remember, when I was in school that 2006 season was pretty electric. I mean, you had game after game where it was really tough physical games. I mean, I think about that LSU game, and I can remember a specific play where I believe it was Jacob Hester. It was a big third down conversion, and he catches the ball and then takes it felt like he took several steps and then fumbles the ball out of bounds, but he gets the first down. Like he fumbles it forward and it gets the first down. And the crowd's just going nuts, insane. And I'm just convinced that the crowd influenced the decision to overturn that into an incomplete pass. I mean, I can go on and on and on. Freaky stuff happens when the Auburn crowd gets fired up. And I think that's kind of what Ryan was saying to me, to where the crowd can sometimes elevate the team to play above their own capabilities. And even in the dark times, even in the last 4 years, I mean, you can go back to, and a lot of them, I'll be honest, a lot of them do seem to revolve around the Iron Bowl. We do just get fired up for the Iron Bowl at home, but there's other games you can point to. In Hugh's first season, the Georgia game, Auburn had no business being in that game. No business whatsoever. And you had a lead late in the fourth quarter, just really frustrating Georgia's offense. And then it took a heroic effort from Brock Bowers making one-handed catches in traffic, just freaky athletic plays to take that game over. And then you go to the Alabama game that same year, another game you had no business being in, no business whatsoever being in. And it takes just a miracle play. It takes a miracle play for Alabama to win that game. You look at the Texas A&M games the last couple of years where Auburn is playing I know the Cadillac game was a little bit different because both teams from a record standpoint were not good, but the atmosphere is what drove Auburn to win those games. It always seems to really, really help the defense. And I think that's obvious because that's when the crowd gets the loudest. But you've seen crazy things happen in Auburn games that are sort of inexplicable. Like I think about 2006 against Florida. I don't know that Auburn scored an offensive touchdown and beats, I think they were maybe number one in the country at that point in time. Or you go back to 1993 or 94, or I can't exactly remember the year but that was one of the first Auburn games I ever attended against LSU. And you had 3 or 4 pick sixes to come back and win the game. Just crazy things happen when Auburn's playing well, and they don't even necessarily have to be playing well. And I can't really put my finger on what the recipe is. We know the Iron Bowl takes care of itself. Okay. We know that the Georgia game kind of sells itself to the crowd, but there are other times where, man, these Texas A&M games, there's really no reason why everybody gets so fired up at one point in time. It's hard to really understand what it is, but for whatever reason, the Jordan-Hare can flip a switch and it can be a really, really tough place to play. I mean, I have some group chats with some guys from, some Alabama fans, and they'll talk about the voodoo at Jordan-Hare. Like there's something there there's something there. There's something special about that place. A lot of times it's at night. There's a good night atmosphere, but there is something about that place, to Ryan's point, that makes a team sometimes when everything's going, when everything's kind of just falls in the right place, it makes that team elevate. He goes on to mention that, you think about how well coached Alabama teams were and how well buttoned up. They just don't make stupid mistakes. And then how many stupid mistakes they make when they come play in Jordan-Hare, from, fumbling snaps 2 times in a row almost, to getting too many men on the field penalties, to missing field goals, having a lapse in coaching lapses, really. I get both sides of the argument. I totally get where they're coming from. I totally get where Lance is coming from, but I see what Ryan is talking about as well. When all things are right, there's something special in Jordan-Hare that you can't really put a figure on. You can't really put a value on. It just, for whatever reason, there's something, when all the right things collide, something special typically happens. I want to get back to where that is every single game. I want to get back to where people actually fear coming to Jordan-Hare, and not like, man, if we flip a coin and if it's heads tonight, we're going to be in trouble. If it's tails, we'll be okay. There was a long running joke at I think it was up until 2009. There used to be this joke that, Auburn couldn't win those early games. Auburn couldn't win those early kickoff games. You think about the big games that Auburn dropped that they had no business losing. And, hey, it's hard to get up as a crowd for an 11 o'clock game or 12 o'clock kickoff. And then I think that it was Ole Miss, and that was like the whole thing about that Ole Miss game. It was like, hey, we're going to win. We're going to win the early game. We kept every time we score, we're touching our watch. That type thing. I just think this Auburn fan base, these Auburn fans are just looking for an excuse to get fired up for football. You see it in basketball. Basketball's good right now. It doesn't matter who the opponent is. Basketball is going to show up, and it's going to be a rowdy atmosphere. Football can get back there. It may not be all the same as it has always been, because I think people are just sort of starting to get a little bit checked out on football in general. And I'm not just talking about Auburn. I'm just talking about across the board with everything that goes on with NIL and the transfer portal. And it's so hard to remember and connect with the team because it changes every single year. I mean, you add basically 40 new players a year, almost half the team. It's crazy. But I think Auburn is, man, if you could just win a few, I think there could be something special. And I think there could be something special this year. Another one of those special atmospheres. And we're going to talk about that in just a second, but we're going to take a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back right after this. Auburn released not necessarily the schedule. We already knew the schedule, but the times of the kickoffs recently. And whenever I saw the times, I went back and thought about this clip we just watched, because I think there could be something brewing that has the potential to be really special, has a potential to be one of those classic things, classic games, classic atmospheres that everybody points to and says, what was the best atmosphere that you can remember? I think this one could possibly be in the conversation. If you look, you got that Georgia game, Game 6, and it's the only one that's labeled at home a night game. 100% that game will kick off under the lights. You're talking, I think it says what, 7:30, 6:30 or 7:30. 5 to 7 nighttime kickoff. So the vast majority of your game is going to be played under the lights. This fan base is so hungry, and Georgia is easy to get up for anyway. But this has the potential to be one of the all-time crowds, one of those all-time crowds for these games if you start the year off right. We've talked about this for a very, very long time until it's almost, it gets repetitive. But with recruiting the way it is right now and kids wanting to be a little bit more of a show me, I think fans are a lot of the same way. I think fans are a lot of the, hey, I keep shelling out, man. It's time to show me. It's time to show me. And then if the first four or five games go in the right direction, and then you pull into Jordan-Hare at night versus Georgia, again, it's not very often that you get those night games. You play a lot of 2:30 games against Georgia that end up at night sometimes. But now with it being in the early part of the season, some of those games have not even really been that close to nighttime, like fully nighttime under the lights. If Auburn can start off somewhere in the neighborhood of 4-1, if they can be 4-1, or 5-0, but if they could be 4-1 going into that Georgia game, so many aspects will line up. The recruiting aspect will line up. That'll be one of the biggest official visit weekends, not official visit, but just visit weekends of the season. Auburn's good. Georgia's going to be good. It's going to be a night game. We've been wanting to come to Auburn, and they're starting to show that they can, they're moving in the right direction. Count me in for that. So from the recruit aspect, it could be massive. The Georgia drought has been pretty painful. I mean, you're going on, you've lost 7 in a row? So you haven't won since 2017. I guess the closest was 2 years ago. That in and of itself, the chance to you would start feeling like you got a shot to take down Georgia if you're 4-1 going to that game. Especially depending on how Georgia's playing up until then, you feel like, hey, maybe we got a shot here. Get a little fired up. Get that feeling in your stomach on Tuesday, waiting for that Saturday kickoff. And then to top it all off, it's a night game. I think this has the opportunity to be one of those 2006 Florida, or those games that you put in your memory bank and you're like, dadgum, man, that was one of the best. That was one of the loudest crowds I can remember. Or that was one of the best atmospheres I can remember. I think it's got a chance. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. What is it going to take? What would it take for that game to be one of the all-timers as far as atmosphere goes? I mean, the Texas A&M game 2 years ago, I'm sorry, not even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when Harsin was fired, that was an all-timer atmosphere, and Auburn was terrible that year. But you had the whole Cadillac aspect and the Auburn sort of rallying the troops and getting behind Auburn, basically. I thought last year's Texas A&M atmosphere was pretty electric. A team that, had squandered a bunch of opportunities, some of them at home, to take that next step, to be, maybe getting that 8-win category where you can show that you're moving not only from a statistical standpoint, but moving from a record standpoint in the right direction. That was sort of there was no reason for that atmosphere to really be electric, but it just so happened to work, and it was at night, and it just worked. Going to a bunch of overtimes. I mean, I don't know, man. I just think if the cards fall right, you could have something really special in that Georgia game, and boy, we need it. We need to exercise some demons. Auburn needs to exercise some demons. So the importance of starting off hot is so important for a bunch of reasons. We've talked recruiting, we've talked momentum, and this, that, and the other. But I'll tell you what, Auburn fans are hungry. Auburn fans are loyal. But you can only take so much. So I think by and large, they'll always be there to support the team. But I think even Auburn fans are sometimes guilty of needing a spark, needing that spark to kind of get up and get after it. They could do it, man. They could do it, and that could be a really, really fun evening. Even if it doesn't necessarily turn out in a win, it could be a really fun atmosphere that's very, very memorable. I'd love to get your thoughts. Do you think Auburn has one of the top home field advantages in the country? Do you think it's just strictly off wins and losses? Do you think it's off of environment? How do you define what a tough home field advantage is? Guys, I really appreciate it. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and drive home safely.